on this episode of Resonance Deep Dive. Pixelated Apollo, a YouTuber with over 830,000 subscribers, reveals all on life as the biggest Total War content creator on the platform.
I've always lived with really bad anxiety, and I just have a meltdown, and I'm like, I can't do this. I really love Total War, so I was like, you know what, let me do some siege battles just for fun, of just like a little project, and then eventually it just kind of took off, and I was like, I guess I'll do this. You guys are idiots. They have a history team and a fantasy team, and they're making more history games. I'm like, okay, all right, let's see what happens.
What was the first game that you started to get those vibes where you're like, something a bit fishy is going on here that I'm not too happy with?
Warhammer, the first one.
Bannerlord comes out.
Yeah. Well, that's another disappointment. I'm gonna be real. Bannerlord was not good. Third Age was kind of like the bread and butter.
If only there was a standalone.
Maybe like 10 years ago, yeah, I totally agree. But today, even if they announced, hey, we're doing Lord of the Rings, I'd be like, don't care.
Hello everybody and welcome back to episode 4 of the Resonant Deep Dive podcast. And today I am joined by the one, the only Pixelated Apollo. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, this is, I think when I was sort of planning on the podcast, I have like a list of guests and you were one of the top ones that I wanted to get on, since we've spoken like not really much, sometimes in DMs, a bit like dropped in on a live stream every now and then, but it would be good to have like a proper chat about YouTube and things like that. How have you really been coping through this COVID stuff with YouTube?
For me, I mean, it didn't really change anything,
yeah.
You know? I don't know for you if anything changed.
Well, I was still like sort of my last year of uni, so that changed a lot. But in terms of like just YouTube, no, nothing really changed.
I mean, I've always been a hermit that just sits in my office, and that's the nice thing. I guess, you know, a YouTube career is pandemic proof. You know, so very thankful and lucky for that, for sure.
Yeah. What's sort of the situation of where you are at the moment? Are you coming out of lockdowns yet?
I'm in Georgia, and they're pretty lenient on the COVID stuff. So, I don't know. It feels like it didn't even happen over here. I mean, some places require a mask, but most of them are like, hey, wear a mask unless you forget, whatever, you know.
So you guys don't have to wear a mask at all? Like not even shops and things like that?
There's zero. In terms of a state government, there's zero restrictions. So there's no require. Some private companies, though, will have certain policies. So there are some like Walmart near me. They don't really care, but it's Walmart, you know. People didn't wear masks there even at the height of it, you know. So, but there's some certain places that are very, very strict. But mostly, I mean, you know. It's pretty nice here in terms of that.
How have you sort of, because I don't know, like during COVID, I know you said not much has like changed, but I feel like, especially for me, like the focus has gone like solely to YouTube because everything else has really stopped and things like that. And I guess there has been, and it sort of brings me on to how YouTube is these days. What do you think the stage is at this point? Because I feel like YouTube is, at least at the moment, we mentioned it before we started recording, that I think views are down and things like that. How have you coped with sort of the way YouTube's changing at the moment? Because I think it's going through some big things right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And not only with YouTube, but other platforms as well have kind of gone kind of crazy. But for me, I always had the mentality of just do what I do, no matter what. Keep my head down, do what I enjoy, and just see what happens. And if something good happens, great. If something bad happens, well, you just keep going.
Yeah.
You know?
You got into, speaking of other platforms, did you get into Facebook streaming? Are you still doing that at the moment?
No. So that was like a contract deal. Yeah. So I was like, I might as well try it out and see. It's
Did you
awful.
get a DM from the Zuck?
No, unfortunately not. You know,
Get on
I'm
our
not
platform now.
Yeah, they're like, oh, dude, I love your channel. No, actually, the guy who was in charge of running, and I think this is the only reason why I got the Facebook thing, is because the guy in charge of running, finding, talent or whatever, he was a Total War fan.
I
So
see. I see.
So it was easy because they had like an interview and see if you fit. And I was like, yeah, I do Total War. And he's like, oh, I love Total War. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I mean, it was an experience, and I probably lost Facebook money than actually help them.
How does monetization work on that platform? Because I'm assuming like the deal came like up from a thing, but is there like ads and stuff on Facebook videos now?
I think so. It's been so long that I mean, the way it worked is like you had to stream a certain amount of hours to get paid a certain amount. So they wanted it so eventually they would stop paying us and we'd be making money through ads or memberships or whatever through Facebook, but that just never happened. I had a couple friends who were in that little program, and like they didn't re-sign me, but they re-signed a couple of my YouTube friends, and they were like, it just got worse. They demanded more hours and they paid less, and so
yeah, I can imagine Facebook isn't. I mean, it's not known for its live streaming. Let's put it that way.
No, and they always asked for advice, and I was always like, you guys probably need to make something separate that's not Facebook gaming. Call it like, something completely different that's
or just
like
just buy Twitch off Amazon and try and outbid them.
Yeah, I mean, they got the money. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe they can't outbid Amazon, but
yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of because Facebook has the name, but Facebook has the name for anything but gaming. Like, surely it would just way more sense to either just set up a platform or just buy something. I mean, see what happened with Mixer though, so I guess that'll kind of put them off the whole Mixer deal.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how the whole Facebook gaming thing's going, but I did the bare minimum because I hated it.
Get the bag and run. That's what I say.
I mean, I tried. I want to make that clear, and I was grateful for the opportunity. But I mentioned many things that they could do to improve it, and they never really did anything. I don't know.
Like, it seemed, at least I think to a lot of people, maybe off brand for you, because you don't seem to do many sponsorships in videos, do you? In like your main videos.
No, I do a lot of sponsorships. Yeah. At least lately, I've kind of accepted as much as I can, just because the way I look at it is, YouTube is a very fickle thing. I mean, we just mentioned that they could simply change, one little thing and your channel's destroyed, or people just, stop watching. And it's just, for me right now, I'm just trying to, it's not like I've got some like crazy lifestyle. I got to pay for my Lamborghini.
I mean, that's a pretty big beanbag you got back there, so I don't know.
That is true. Okay. I should have hid that, but
yeah, you've been caught out there.
That's actually from, I think it was from Sam's Club or Costco. I don't know if you've heard. It's like it's a big store that sells bulk.
I see.
I don't know if
yeah. Well, we've got Costco in the UK, yeah.
Oh, you have Costco. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, for me, it's just kind of like, I want to make sure I have some money towards retirement and, starting a family, and it's, I'll just take what I can, and it's like one video a week at the most.
Is that sort of your main aim with YouTube? Is it to carry on doing YouTube, or is it eventually to get to a point where you can sort of like either pull back on it or just like settle off it a bit?
Yeah. I mean, the nature of YouTube is very demanding, and you always have to be on top of it. You got to upload every day. You got to see the latest news, see the latest game coming out or whatever. And it's very demanding, and in a mental way. In no way am I like, oh, woe is me.
Well, yeah, I think people understand that we're not like comparing it to working in the mines or on the dockyards and stuff like that. But like, I think what a lot of people and I've said this in the first episode of this podcast, like one of the reasons I wanted to start this is to talk to other YouTubers, and to get an idea of how they really respond to YouTube in sort of mentally, because I know a lot of the time, mental health wise, I struggle with YouTube, and YouTube doesn't help whatsoever. It's all a numbers game, and if the numbers aren't, and it's kind of, even on the highs, it's scary how much YouTube influences, at least for me, my day, and like how happy I am at that time. If a video's done well, it's like a big burst of adrenaline. If a video's done bad, or God forbid 3 videos in a row do bad, like they have this week, it's just a downward slope. How have you managed to cope with it? How have you sort of got around that?
I know exactly what you mean there. It's kind of like you're only as good as your last video kind of thing. And
and it sounds absolutely insane to an outsider, that, but it's just the truth, that.
Yeah, it's a performance-based thing. It's not like, with a normal job, you can kind of go in and be like, man, I'm not really feeling work, but you're still going to get paid the same, even if you like kind of take an easy week or whatever. And yeah, no, I mean, for me, I think during the peak of my channel, there was a time like 2016, 2017, I was grinding like crazy. I was doing like 13-hour days, video after video after video, looking at new mods. I was going really hard. And I think back then it probably affected me a lot more if a video did poorly. Nowadays, I really don't care. And maybe I'm just happy with my channel where it's at. And like, I guess I've gotten to the point where I don't really care how many subs I get or how many views. I mean, as long as I get enough to pay my bills, I'm happy about that. And don't get me wrong, there's times where I'm like really looking forward to releasing a video. And then it comes out and it just bombs, and it's like, man, that kind of sucks.
Especially one that you've actually because you'll always have videos that you put more effort into than other ones. And if it's the ones that you put your heart into and you're like, oh, this is such a good video, and then you see it at number 10 on that little countdown list on YouTube. That's the one.
Not only that, but you'll see people being like, this is stupid. Where's Rome 2? Where's Third Age? No one wants to see this. And it's like, oh.
Do you pay much attention to comments?
Again, same thing. Like, I think I used to care. And even when I did care, I didn't care that much. I would care enough to be like, okay, what are people into? What do they like about the video? But nowadays, when someone's like, oh, this is garbage, I just kind of like get, chuckle a little bit and move on. I don't really care. So I'm just kind of like, in a way, like autopilot with my channel, where just kind of like, I'll do stuff that I know will do well, but I'll also throw in a lot of stuff that I'm like, you know what, screw it, I want to do it. I don't care if it gets 100 views. That's it.
Almost sort of reverting, well, I guess, to like how it was when people start their channels, where you sort of just do it because you're not expecting to get views. You just sort of do whatever videos you want. How long ago did you start? Was it 7-8 years ago?
Yeah, it was about 7-8 years ago. I think 2013, it was just like a little hobby. And what made you start
recording videos?
Oh man, I've always lived with really bad anxiety, and I was in a point in my life where I was going to college and I hated it. I literally would having panic attacks like every day. It got so bad I couldn't even drive myself to the school. There's one time I just forced myself to it, and I was like, I see the door handle ready to open up the classroom to go in, and I just have a meltdown, and I'm like, I can't do this. And I went through this really just bedridden anxiety state, and I was like, all right, well, I need to do something creative to keep my mind occupied. And I really love Total War, so I was like, let me do some siege battles just for fun, and it helped me out a ton. So I kind of did that, and it was just kind of like a self-medicating process, of just like a little project and then eventually it just kind of took off, and I was like, I guess I'll do this.
Yeah. when sort of about the time did it take off? Because I mean, it took me a good 2-3 years to get to 1,000 subscribers. Was it a bit faster for you?
No, it wasn't. I was terrible. If you go to my first video, I've had people go to my first video and be like, wow, like this is really inspiring to see how bad you were.
Everyone's first videos are absolutely shocking.
Yes.
It's kind of a given.
Okay. Sometimes there's people who are like prodigies, you know, they just get on and they just blow up, you know, but for the, you know, typical person, the first video is going to be garbage. And you know, it took me, I think, a year to get 500 subs.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was about 4 to like 6 months I didn't upload. I just took a break from it, and then I came back. And I think I really started to take off when I reached around. I got really motivated when I hit 1,000, because when I hit 1,000, I was like, "Whoa, I'm like actually a YouTuber." You know, I was like,
"You're one of the big boys now."
Yeah, I was like 1,000. Holy crap! Like I can do this.
Yeah, I think that's probably the first like proper milestone is 1,000, maybe.
Yeah, and it was so funny because I look back and I had milestone videos for like 25 subs, 50 subs, 100 subs. You know, it was just thrilling. It was so much fun to like upload, and I didn't really have the mindset of going in like, oh, this is what I'm going to do for a living and this is going to be my career. I just did it because like, oh, I really like Medieval 2 Siege battles, and here's this cool community that likes them too. And then, you know, I got to 1,000. And then from there, I took it a lot more seriously. I started doing thumbnails. I started to be way more consistent. And then I got to about 10,000. And then that's when it really started to blow up, because I got into like Third Age. Yeah. And Third Age was huge. And
those are like some of your most viewed ones, as well as like some of the Napoleon Total War mods. I think you've got some pretty high views on those sort of things.
Yeah. I think Third Age was kind of like the bread and butter, that because what it did is it got a lot of just the casual viewer to sub, you know, like it got a lot of people who didn't really play Total War, but they love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You know, So
if only there was a standalone Third Age Total War. Now that would be something.
Maybe like 10 years ago. Yeah, I totally agree. But today even if they announced, hey, we're doing Lord of the Rings, I'd be like, don't care.
Would even that not bring you back?
Nope.
Even that.
Medieval 3, nope.
Really?
I'm done.
You've gone that far. Done. You know what? I rewatched your 50-minute, don't know what to call it, like rant maybe, or just like sort of almost like an outpour sort of about all your feelings about Total War. What's changed since then? Is it still pretty much the same?
Well, I made a couple of those, so you gotta tell me which
the 50-minute one was like the first one saying I think it was called "I'm leaving Total War."
Yeah.
So there was one before that. What was the one before that?
Well, I made one in like when Warhammer came out saying my problems with that one was a little less spicy. But
you're just testing the waters.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know, I pulled a Scotty Kimmler. Do you know Scotty Kimmler?
I don't know.
He's a very popular YouTuber who's like a mechanic.
Okay.
And he'll like, and he's really funny, and he does those titles where it's like, I'm done, or my career's over, or, you know,
sensationalist stuff.
Yeah. But, you know, at the time in that video, I was really upset, and, you know, I was like, you know what? Like, I never said I was going to stop doing Total War. I was just like, I'm taking a break indefinitely, and I'm not going to cover the new ones. And, you know, I've definitely gone back to the older ones and still play those, but like Warhammer 3.
I've seen the memes in the comments section. I'm done with Total War 2 weeks later. Shogun 2 epic battle.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I see that. I find it funny. And, you know, sometimes I like explain it like, well, I said indefinitely, and I did cut off my connection with CA. Like, I told the PR guy, I was like, hey, I'm kind of done. Don't worry about sending me, you know, whatever. And yeah, so I'm just over it, I guess, and I just don't care. Warhammer 3 is coming out. I haven't seen a single video of it. Like, I haven't even looked into it.
I want to sort of rewind that a little bit. Let's go back to 2013, where you wanted to start your YouTube channel. What were the Total War games that really got you into that?
Definitely Medieval 2. That was, I mean, it was, Medieval 2 was in a weird state in 2013 where it wasn't too big and siege battles weren't super popular. I think there was always a small group of people who played the siege battles, but I remember watching Prince of Macedon. He had a siege battle, and now when I rewatch it, I'm like, man, the attackers were just terrible. Like, just, but he was like playing as England, and it was like a double layered castle, and he was defending against Egypt. It's like one of his most popular videos.
Was it?
And I watched it.
Was this the one with like multiple, like loads of people in it? This siege battle? That might be a different one.
His ally was the Byzantine. It's like I vividly know. And he kept ranking on them because they were doing stupid stuff. And it was hilarious. And I watched this, and there's one part where he's holding the breach with few soldiers against the Egyptian like mass army. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. This, like, I get like, it's like Kingdom of Heaven kind of siege battle epic. And I get drawn in, and I was like, I want to do siege battles. These look awesome. Yeah. And, you know, I just went in and I started making videos on siege battles and really getting into the strategies and different, like, I would come up with names for different tactics. Like, one's shooting fish in a barrel, which is where you lock the enemy infantry in the walls, and then you have archers kind of shoot from the flank, from the, you know, and just little things like that. And I got so into it. And then I started to notice, like, oh, the siege community is getting bigger and bigger, and new people were coming up with like tactics, and it was really cool. And that just, you know, that's what made me love the Total War a whole new level. And I just love that Medieval 2 is very sandboxy with these siege battles. You know, you could ladders and you know, all this different equipment and the layers of walls, and it was just awesome.
Yeah. I mean, from that point, did your channel, it was the sort of the Third Age sort of stuff that blew you up. Were you much of a fan of the Rome series? Well, I say the Rome series. Let's just say Rome Total War, the first one. Yeah, I know your answer for the second one. Yeah. Well, the second one grew on me for sure, but Rome, I love Rome Total War. I think I was just more of a medieval. I was more into medieval history. And so that one just kind of stuck with me more. But I definitely love Rome Total War as well. I mean, my first Total War was medieval Total War. The first one.
Yeah. And then Rome came out, and I was like, holy crap, like, this is amazing 3D. Like, this is the music and the diplomacy. And then, you know, Medieval 2. And I remember when Medieval 2 came out, I was like, holy crap, these graphics. Like, it's stunning.
To be fair, and Medieval 2 still kind of holds up.
Yeah, it does. I mean, especially if you compare it to other games that came out same year.
Yeah.
It's like, it's night and day. But yeah. I don't play Medieval 2 much anymore because I just played the crap out of it. But when people ask me, what's your favorite Total War, it's always Medieval 2. Like, that's...
We touched on sort of your point of moving away from the Total War franchise, and obviously that was like, well, it still kind of is like a massive part of your channel. What was the first game that you started to get those vibes where you're like, something a bit fishy is going on here that I'm not too happy with?
Warhammer. Warhammer, the first one. And, you know, people all the time, they say, oh, it's just because you don't like the lore or whatever. And I'm not a huge fan of the lore, but I always said, you know, if the game is good,
Yeah.
I will be more interested in the lore. It's like the game itself will make me more, interested in the setting. Like Napoleon Total War. I did not have a huge interest in the Napoleonic era. But Napoleon Total War, like, I was like, oh, this is crazy. I'm like, who's this guy? What's this general? And I looked into it more, and I just love it. So, yeah, I mean, I vividly remember the first time I played Warhammer and the extreme amount of disappointment that I had.
What specifically was it, do you think?
I think it was just the lack of just how boring the battles seem.
Yeah.
Where maybe it's my own fault because my imagination of like envisioning orcs and men fighting and having dragons come into these castles and just, like breathe fire on these layers of castles, and seeing orcs use their masks to like push soldiers off the walls, and just like over the top, like this would be crazy. And then, when I saw the first siege and it was just like a edge of a square, like that's the wall. And there's no multiple layers, and the battles are like 5 minutes, and I was just
you sort of hoping for a medieval reskin just with Warhammer sort of thing?
Kind of, but more like pushing the limits, because the technology's better. And
yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I forgot. I mean, Rome 2 also put a bad taste in my mouth. It wasn't like completely like. I just thought CA made a blunder. It was like, okay, Rome 2. That was kind of a blunder. It's better now,
Oh, I love Rome 2 now. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, same. Especially when you compare it to the new games. I always mention, like, I was never really a huge fan of the prequels to Star Wars. But now when the new ones have come out, I'm like, the prequels are awesome,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I feel with Rome 2, and even Thrones of Britannia. I'm like, these are awesome when you compare it to Warhammer, So yeah, and they just had these shady like DLC. It was just becoming very clear that it was purely about making easy money, rather than, hey, let's make a piece of art.
I mean,
and I understand
that point in your video, I would say, was probably like one of the points that I'd say I disagree with, because I know, like, obviously saying, oh, it's business and stuff, that's kind of a weak argument, but I don't know. I guess it's just maybe me just being pessimistic, but it would be nice if every company that size like really cared about their fans and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it is a company, and like I would say, just money will always come over morals. So I mean, it is a point, and I agree with you on the fact that it's a bit shitty, but I don't think there's anything that could ever be done about that.
But yeah, I get that. I mean, I hear that, it's a business. They got to make money. I understand that. I get that. It's not like they can just, they have employees. They gotta make new games and stuff. But I guess what killed me is that what kills me, and this isn't just a CA problem. This is a problem in gaming in general, where you get these lazy DLCs or the loot boxes, which are kind of dying. The loot boxes are kind of dying, thank God. Yeah. And, it made me mad that people are just kind of like, well, it's, this is just a business. I mean, like, this is just the norm now. And it's like, can we have some better standards, for...
I've had a similar thing that I've experienced, like, this week with Chivalry 2. And I think it's a fantastic game. But I've mentioned, like, how on launch it came with just a load of microtransactions. And, like, all the comments were like, yeah, it's cosmetic. It doesn't matter. I'm like, yeah, I get it doesn't matter the gameplay, but they're still locking your game behind some paywall. Wouldn't you, like, if why would you defend, like, there's no reason to defend it at all. It's like, it's just cosmetic, though. But if you pay for a game, Chivalry's like 30, 40 quid. I'd rather get the whole game.
Yeah, or have it where they have like an in-game currency where you can unlock it.
And they do, to some extent, have that, but they do have stuff that is like you have to buy into it, and sort of like, Yeah, I get. It is weird how people are, and I guess it's what was the plan the whole time, that people are now starting to accept it as the norm.
Yeah, and you know, for me, I don't know how old you are.
21.
21. Okay, so you're I mean, but you experienced it, like I would say like 2011, 2013. Those are great gaming years. You know, I think that was the last.
I wasn't much into gaming then, but that's when I started watching YouTube, and that's when I was watching like Prince of Macedon, the Yogscast, those sort of things. Like it did feel like there was a peak of gaming YouTube at least, and obviously that correlates into gaming itself.
Yeah, I mean, the gaming was simple. You know, they made a good game that you buy. There's no content being held back, or if you pre-order, you'll get the DLC for free, you know, trying to get people to pre-order. It was just like, I mean, you had Skyrim came out, and you had these great games coming out, and there wasn't this bullcrap. And there was some, but it was like, it wasn't crazy. I mean, I know in Oblivion they had the horse armor DLC. That
I was about to say, it's mad you mentioned Skyrim, because like back then, in 2011 when that game came out, it was like that. But ironically enough, in the last 5 or so years, Skyrim's been released about 20 billion times.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, talk about just milking it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, and I think we've just gotten to a point now where I think gaming was less mainstream back then. And I hate to sound like a hipster, but
I was in it before it went big.
Yeah. It was more wholesome. It was more passion project. There was less politics behind it. And you know, you can make some games, and don't get me wrong, there's like indie companies that making great games. Witcher 3 was a great example of a passion project, and you can't really say the same about Cyberpunk, but
well, see, CD Projekt Red started off, well, they all start off like Creative Assembly, CD Projekt Red, even Rockstar, they all start off as passion projects, and then they'll slip up, and then that's when everyone's like, yeah, they're just a company. They're like, they're like your friend's home game developer until there's that one moment, and then people start to realize, actually, yeah, they are just a company.
Yeah, and it's sad, you know, but you know, I mean, all you can really do is vote with your wallet and just buy games that I don't know. I like, gaming is like one of the biggest industries now that it's gonna get hijacked by people who are just making an easy buck. And you know, maybe it's nostalgia, but I kind of miss the simpler times where there was no DLCs. There were things called expansions, and there was so much new stuff. You know, even Medieval 2 had the like Teutonic and Crusader expansion. And
they weren't like the expansions you get now that are like 20, 30 quid. They were like 11, 12 pounds for like a full expansion.
It was like a completely different experience too. You know, now it's like, that was the other problem with Rome 2 is, you know, not only did it have a horrible launch, and they lied to us. You know, they showed footage of this crazy siege of Carthage. I don't know if you remember that video.
Was that before you were sort of on YouTube, so you didn't go to CA stuff then? Or?
Yeah, well, I just started, so I wasn't really big enough.
I'll let you into a bit of a spoiler for the Prince of Macedon episode that hasn't gone out yet by the time we're recording this, but he did go, and he said they let them play for 20 minutes. Because, you know, CA events now, you go and you play for like 3 hours and you can record. Yeah. So apparently they play for 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what really made me mad. And then that was, you know, again, I wasn't jumping ship there or like too mad. I was like, maybe, okay, this is just a slip up. And that's when I really looked at Warhammer through, you know, with very critical, you know, a point of view. But yeah, I mean, I remember videos of them showing like the AI general moving around and using abilities and like big brain AI, and it just was not that. And then on, you know, the salt in the wound is all these lazy DLCs. You had like the Beast of War DLC, or you got Armored Camels, you know, and the Greeks, which are a fan favorite for many Total War fans, were locked behind DLC.
Wrath of Sparta DLC, yeah. Mad that.
Well, not only that, I mean, like you had to be able to play Athens, Sparta, I think Epirus. Those are the three.
Yeah.
You had to pre-order it, and that was kind of like, you know,
You're
that
right.
was
Thinking back, Sparta and Athens were
Yes.
a lot.
Sparta.
You know, I was 13 years old when that came out, so I was just so excited because like Rome Total War was like the first PC game I played and owned myself, and like so.
Yeah.
But yeah, thinking back on the lens now, that's mad.
That is, yeah, and you know, it's just to get people to pre-order.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just really scummy because, I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
So
that's
what was
killed
sort
it.
of when you made the last video saying you were quitting Total War and stuff? What was there like a catalyst that? Because obviously it sounds like it was building up for a while, but what was the catalyst for that?
Well, yeah, it was Troy Total War,
Okay.
which I don't know if you remember that game. You know, a lot of times these games, they come out and they're forgotten.
I'm a bit of a veteran on that. I've got 40 minutes in that, so.
Oh, 40 minutes.
And I
Holy
was
crap.
given that before it was released.
Yeah. Well, yeah, me too. And this is what happened. Well, okay, there's a huge buildup, but it was just like, you have this weird dynamic right now in Total War where you have the history fans and the fantasy fans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because I don't really see it that way. I love history, don't get me wrong, but fantasy can be just as fun. I mean, I play Third Age all the time.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so if Warhammer had good mechanics, I'd love it. I'd be like, yeah, Warhammer 3, let's go. You know, let's do it. But I don't know. There's this weird dynamic where like the Warhammer fans think that history fans don't like it because it's fantasy, and it's not really the case. And they'll say like, "Oh, you guys are idiots. They have a history team and a fantasy team, and they're making more history games." I'm like, okay, all right, let's see what happens.
I've got to admit, I was that. That was me.
Well, I was, and that's okay. You know, like I get that makes sense at first, but
Yeah.
then Three Kingdoms comes
Well,
out.
that was what we were told. I mean, that's what Creative Assembly said. So,
Yeah, they're like, calm down. We're still doing history. I'm like, okay, all right, cool.
and then they half did it.
let's see what Three Kingdoms is about. And then they released it, and I was like, okay, I'm getting real nervous. Because I played Dynasty Warriors, and that's not history. You know, that's superhero stuff. And then they're like, oh yeah, Three Kingdoms is gonna have a hero dynamic, and I was like, oh, so this is the history team. Like, this is what we get. And you know, everybody was upset about it, and that's why they added records mode, which is just. You know, they take away the powers and give the heroes a bodyguard. That's pretty much it. But yeah, that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is bad. Let's wait though, because they were trying to make both sides happy. I think that was a stupid move. I think they need to just make it very strict history, very strict fantasy. But the other thing about Three Kingdoms is they're trying to get in the Chinese market. Like, you know, and they even said that in an interview. They're like, this is going to be big in the Chinese market. And I was like, okay, you know, so now China's going to get to rule the games and how they're made. And
yeah, overall, like, I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, but when it changes the gameplay, it's when it's like starts to be a bit more questionable. Because, like, obviously I don't mind them making something that would do better in another country, and it's exploring a new time era, but yeah, when they start to change things. But I think you mentioned in your video that there was this whole, I don't know if to call it a conspiracy, about the delay of Three Kingdoms, whether it was them checking with the Chinese government and stuff like that. But
yeah, well, I mean, they are very strict on how their history is portrayed, and you know, they it has to be a way that they approve because they want their citizens to view their history in a beautiful light, and hey, more power to them, you know. I respect that. But I think what kills me is it's not like CA was like, oh, we're gonna make this game for the great people of China because we love them. You know, it's just like, we're going to make some money here, some fat stacks. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, or it wasn't like, man, you know, a lot of people here working really love the history of China and we really want to make a game on it. And it you know, it might so happen do well and to do well in China as well. You know, it wasn't like that, at least in my opinion. And, you know, that came out and I was like, okay, well, it was fun. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I
think they
love Three Kingdoms. I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but it is one of my favorite, at least more recent Total Wars. And I would say I'm a bit less sort of black and white with you. Like, I'm not that bothered about them making at least a Total War that might appeal to Chinese fans. It's when it was what was that card game that they did? And that was like, well, that's just a shit game, innit?
Yeah. Well, they've dabbled into you know, that's the other red flag is like they dabble into the easy money making markets like card game collecting mobile games. They did Total War Arena, which
they've done
I loved.
it again. You've seen at E3 the Total War Warhammer. It's like Warhammer Battles, and they got a new trailer for that, which is
it's a mobile
Warhammer mobile game.
I didn't see that. Yeah, oh, that's fun. Yeah, and again, I think they made big improvements to campaign in Three Kingdoms. You know, diplomacy was much more interesting and everything like that. I wasn't a huge fan of the battles. They still were a little too Warhammer-y for me. And I went on a big rant about I really love Total War because of seeing the individual soldier. You know, we get to see their perspective more than, you know, when you're learning history, you learn about the generals and you don't really know like too much of what the average soldier experienced. And I feel like they kind of took that away in Three Kingdoms because originally they had thumbnails where they were like ghost-like, you know, unit cards. You know, it's because it's all about the, you know, the heroes. So it's like, okay, whatever. Maybe they were trying to do something different there and it just kind of flopped. So let's wait for one more history game. And
it was Troy.
Troy. And you know, I got it early. I recorded a battle. I finished the battle. I'm sitting there looking at it in the editing software and I go, I'm not going to upload this. I don't want to support this. This is not good. And that was the moment where it was
it because you didn't like the game, or was it the whole Epic Games sort of stuff?
It was, I mean, the Epic Games was more like the icing on the cake. It was more I didn't like the game. It was another hero-based history game. And I was like, this is history now. This is Total War history games now. I mean, it's like they want, again, they're trying to go middle ground with history and fantasy. They created these like mystical characters, basically like a realistic character and how they could have came up with the myth of the Minotaur or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but at that point, it's just a fantasy character. I mean, it's a single unit and he's really strong and he's really big. And it's like, it might as well just be a real Minotaur, you know? Yeah. And so I was just like, I don't know. I can't, I'm not really vibing with these history games. So I was just like, I'm kind of done with this. And, you know, I see people who are like, oh, you know, they're going to make Medieval 3 soon. And I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to play as Joan of Arc and she's shooting a laser beam out of her butthole. And, you know, it's like, I'm not looking forward to that.
Do you think some of that's down to the fact that, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're mainly a multiplayer guy, and the multiplayer is, I mean, it's never been incredible. I would say Rome 1 and Medieval 2 have been great multiplayers, but even since like Rome 2, the multiplayer's never been their focus. And I actually think a lot of the features in the single players, even in Troy, there's been a lot of cool things added to the single player, but I guess if that's not really your thing, you're not really noticing many of the new changes.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's definitely an aspect to it because I think there's a huge multiplayer community that they could, that it just, if you look at Shogun 2, that is a complete game. I mean, they have fantastic campaign. They have all these cool new features. They have Avatar Conquest. And that would have been really cool for Warhammer, being able to paint your own soldiers and customizing them. But I just feel like it's lazy. I don't know. And it's not only like, all I'm asking is for bare bones multiplayer. Like, I'm not asking for
There wasn't any in Troy, right, at the beginning?
No, it took 6 months for multiplayer to come out, and for Three Kingdoms it took a month after release for them to fix multiplayer. And I just want some siege battles, you know. I mean, it would be cool if they did like a cool reinforcement game mode or like a King of the Hill, or kind of really get creative with it, but they can't even make a bare bones thing. Yeah. So at this point, I don't really think about Total War anymore in terms of the future of Total War. I don't really have any ill feeling towards them. It might sound like it because I'm going on, but
I think it's just like, it's always sad when there's something that you were so passionate about, and then there's sort of a turning point where you realize, actually, I don't really love this anymore. And that's kind of like a sad thing. And it's like, I think sometimes you need to sort of just express it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's just life, though. You know, it's people come and go. Passions always change, and I just don't like where they're going with Total War. And it's, at the end of the day, too bad. Too bad for me. Like, get over it. And that's kind of what I did.
I'm sure CA are like, right, what we're gonna do for Pixelated Apollo next? What game?
They're like, I don't think Apollo's gonna like this.
Yeah, they're in the boardroom bringing up ideas, and they're like, right, should we do this one? And like, nah, Pixelated Apollo will make a video on us if we do that one.
Yeah, it's like, no, we can't do that. Yeah, that would be great. I wish they were like that, but no. I mean, obviously, I have a certain taste for Total War. Not everybody has, and I say that all the time. I say, if you like Warhammer, that's awesome. That's great. If you can play it and you enjoy it, more power to you. It's just not for me. And I think I'm just an older generation. I think, a lot of people who agree with me just played the old ones and kind of just don't really vibe with the new ones.
With this whole multiplayer thing, I can sort of relate in a weird way with Mount & Blade, because I love Warband. One of my favorite games. That's what I built my channel on, much like you did with the earlier Total Wars, playing the multiplayer, and I was doing clan events and stuff like that. Bannerlord comes out. Yeah, we don't really care about multiplayer.
Yeah. Well, that's another disappointment. I'm gonna be real. Bannerlord was not good.
As a general package, or just the multiplayer?
In a general package. I mean, I was not impressed, and I love them. I think they mean well. I don't think they were like trying to just make a cash grab. I just think that they had a lot of issues developing this new game, and they probably restarted over and over and over. And don't get me wrong, the game's not out technically. It's like an early access, so it's there, and they're gonna fix it. But if Warhammer came out, the same thing kind of happened. It was, I don't think multiplayer for Warhammer came out when it first released until a while.
I actually can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I at least that's what, I didn't play Warhammer when it like first came out, but that's what people tell me, like, hey, like, it took Warhammer a long time to really build up the multiplayer community. And so, the mods, it looks like they did a good job with the modding tools and everything. And
even then, I've spoken to modders, and the modders from Mount & Blade just unhappy with that.
Oh, really?
From like just a general perspective, it looks like there's lots of mods, but that's just because the modding community from Warband was so big. But I mean, the modders, I don't know if you saw this, but the modders, like all the big ones that are making like the big persistent world mods, the Lord of the Rings one, the Star Wars ones, they came together and wrote a letter to Tailwood saying, please, we need some better modding tools.
Ooh. Yeah. But I feel like Tell's Worlds would listen, I don't know how long it's going to take them. I don't think modding tools.
What do you mean? They're pretty good with their timing.
Yeah. How long didn't they spend like 9 months working on cloth or something. I forgot.
I don't know,
forgot
like,
exactly.
but it was like that stage when I was like 50k subscribers, like doing all the devlog stuff for Bannerlord, and I was struggling when they were bringing out a devlog saying, we've done this cool thing with these cloaks, or we've now added camels to the game.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And yeah, I was really looking forward to multiplayer for Bannerlord. You know, I had these great, and this is partially my fault for just assuming, you know, my imagination is going to be the truth, but you know, like I'm really big into like competitiveness and like clan battles, and I was like, oh, we're gonna do that in Bannerlord. We'll do these epic, like, I had this idea where like clans could get on and like attack, defend castles, and it'd be really fun to watch. And
Did you play many of the clan stuff in Warband?
Because
You had Call to Arms, but like as in like the other community ones that were put on.
I watched a lot of the competitive scene. Yeah. And I thought it was really cool. And I was like, this is awesome. I mean, like, these guys are really good, and it's a team. I love group struggle. Like, I love the team aspect of stuff. And then I heard Bannerlord, like, they were going to work on making sure they made a better, because the community kind of made the competitive scene.
Yeah, well, the community made Mount and Blade in general with how, and I still think people don't realize it. I see in my comments all the time when I'm talking about why doesn't it have private servers in Bannerlord, they're like, no one plays multiplayer. I'm like, I went to, when I was like 16 and I was like leading these Napoleonic Wars regiments in the DLC, every single night of the week I went to an event with 200 players in it every night, and there were like 6-7 of these events on every single night. Like, it was so big, and it baffles me why that wasn't the first thing that they decided to do.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious to think that, like, oh, nobody does multiplayer when there has been a huge new genre of games that were inspired by the Holdfast, War of Rights, Battlecry Freedom, Prime and Load. Like, it is a huge, and people love that stuff. I mean, they love being part of a regiment, and these are my guys, and we get on and we meme, and you know, and yeah, I if I was in charge of Bannerlord, I'd be like, put me in charge of the multiplayer aspect. I would, I would love to just create cool mechanics and functions that make that stuff even more convenient.
Yeah. But I mean, what do you think the future for the multiplayer of Bannerlord is going to be? Because, I mean, at least for me, even if they bring out private servers now, obviously I'll get on it, but I think a lot of the player base will have gone, because the big thing that I was really excited for with Bannerlord coming out is because it basically did, it was like top 10 games on Steam, broke in sort of the mainstream, and I was like, oh, all these people coming in, we can have even bigger multiplayer events. They've all gone now. Big wave.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they could still save it. I think if they keep improving the modding tools and improving the multiplayer, I think they can get it back. I just think people are waiting. I mean, I have a lot of people who are like, yeah, I just play Warband still. You know, I just do multiplayer Warband. And
there's still loads of events going on with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different communities of, like, Siege communities, and yeah. So I think they still can do it. It's just a little disappointing on the release, but, you know, I think in time, hopefully. I don't know. I mean, like we were just talking about, there's a lot of competitors now in that category. So yeah, we'll see, but hopefully.
So quickly before we start to wrap it up, I just want to know, what is your idea for the future of the channel? Because I mean, after that Total War video, and you sort of started to change your content a bit, and you have moved away from Total War a bit. How did you sort of, was there a big hit to the channel in terms of subscribers and things like that, or did it not affect it too much?
Yeah, no, there was definitely a big hit. I mean, there was, even now, I'm not growing as nearly as fast as, you know, prime, like 2016, 2017. And that might be a various of different reasons, but, you know, I'm just someone that I just kind of do what I enjoy. to the most part. I'm not gonna act like I've never made a video because it does well, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But I still enjoy it at some point, at least. Like, I still enjoy a certain aspect of it. Like, I could just make a bunch of tabs videos and Roblox videos, and I'd probably grow really fast.
Yeah.
But I would be miserable. I'd be miserable.
I mean, who isn't miserable playing Roblox?
Yeah.
Right, I want to know, actually, do you actually like the game, or do you just think, like, because it gets good views with Roblox?
I genuinely think I admire the creativity of it. I admire that they were able to make something this cool. In terms of like the fighting, you know, it's okay. I mean, like, it's just cool that they made Waterloo, like the actual scale of it, and you have so many players, and I'm like, that's really cool, and it's free to play and everything. But am I fascinated to where I'm like wanting to start a regiment and be not really. As of right now, I'm just cruising, I guess. I know that's not the best strategy, but I just play what I feel like. And, you know, I'm actually planning on starting a second channel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, where it's going to be more of a Twitch thing where I just stream. Because there's a lot of games I enjoy. Like, I'm really into competitive games. And no one wants to watch me play that on my channel, you know? Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just going to make a new channel and I'll let people who care watch it. And
what sort of games are you going for with that then?
Just whatever, really. Right now, I really enjoy Rainbow Six Siege. I play the crap out of that.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. I suck at it, but again, it's the struggle. I love it, you know, just slowly getting better at it. I also enjoy Smite. I don't know if you've played Smite.
I've never played it, but I've seen quite a lot on it,
Yeah, I've enjoyed that, and you know, I could play that stuff for hours just because I enjoy the competitiveness. I've always been competitive. I've always played sports growing up, and so that's just what I enjoy. And so for me, like, my channel, the PA channel, is always going to be like my fascination for history and medieval warfare, and just kind of letting me have an outlet for that stuff, and, you know, going from there.
Yeah. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. I mean, it's been great talking to you. It's been very interesting finding out a bit behind the scenes, and I hope the audience have enjoyed that as well. I mean, I feel no need to say this because pretty much everyone watching this video will know who you are. But if you don't know already, go and check out Pixelated Apollo and his new channel when he makes it. Is there any sort of unique selling point to bring people over?
So it's gonna be more me, like, as a person. I think I'm just gonna call it my first name. I'm not gonna, like, you know, I'm not gonna be like High Definition Apollo or something.
Pixelated Apollo HD.
Yeah. Remember that in the YouTube days?
Yeah. Or just have like XX.
1080p. Yeah. But yeah, it's just gonna be a chill thing. So I'll probably announce it everywhere once it's ready. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. I had a lot of fun, and yeah, we really haven't had a talk hangout before. We just kind of always knew of each other, and
it'll be good if private servers ever come to Banlord, we'll get some events going and stuff like that. See what we can do. That'll be fun. Yeah.
We could do, you know, your followers versus mine, and
oh, that would be hell, honestly. As much as I appreciate the people subscribe to my channel, there's only so much of spending time in one-on-one conversation that I could probably do.
No, I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah,
I get that.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming on. We hope everyone enjoyed this episode of the Resonant Deep Dive. But until then, I will see you in the next one.